As Tony was riding his bicycle through the neighborhood, he passed by an uncompleted building. Suddenly, he heard a girl screaming. Alarmed, he parked his bicycle outside and stepped into the building quietly. To his shock, he saw a young girl being taken advantage of by two teenage boys. Quickly, he picked up a piece of wood lying nearby, crept up behind them, and struck one of the boys on the head. Before the second could react, Tony swung again and hit him too. Both boys dropped to the ground, groaning and clutching their heads in pain. Tony rushed to the girl, gently held her arm, and helped her to her feet. Then he turned to the boys and threatened, "If you don't leave now, I'll call the police." Panicked, the boys scrambled up and ran out of the building without another word. The girl clung tightly to Tony, trembling as she sobbed into his chest. "It's okay," he whispered, trying to calm her down, stroking her back gently. "Who are those boys? Do you know them?" he asked softly. She nodded through tears. "Yes, one of them is my friend. He asked me to meet him here. I didn't know he brought his friend along to—" Her voice broke. "To do that to me." "Don't worry," Tony said firmly. "It's going to be all right. You'll have to tell your parents about this. They must be punished." She nodded again, still clinging tightly to him for comfort. Tony helped her onto his bicycle and rode her home. When they arrived at her house, she insisted Tony come inside with her. "What's your name?" Anita asked as they stepped into the living room. "Tony," he replied. "I'm Anita. Thank you for saving me," she said with a small, grateful smile. Just then, her mother, Mrs. Rachel, walked into the living room. Her eyes widened when she saw Anita. Her clothes were ruffled, and her hair was a mess. Anita quickly ran into her arms. "Mum," she cried. Mrs. Rachel held her tightly. "What happened, my baby? Why do you look like this?" she asked, worry written all over her face. Tony stepped forward slightly and began to explain. "Ma'am, your daughter was nearly assaulted by two teenage boys. I heard her scream while I was riding past an uncompleted building and rushed in to help her." "Oh my God," Rachel gasped, looking down at her daughter. "Are you okay, my baby?" Anita nodded, still in tears. "I'm so glad those boys didn't succeed. Do you know who they were?" Anita nodded again. "Yes, it was Jackson and his friend." "What?" Rachel exclaimed. "Your best friend Jackson? What is wrong with boys these days? How dare he?" She paced in frustration. "He must be punished. I'll make sure to report this to his parents." Anita nodded silently, wiping her tears. Just then, Nina came downstairs. Her eyes immediately met Tony's, and for a moment, he couldn't look away. He stared, caught off guard by her beauty. Nina walked over to her mom and sister. "Mum? Anita? What's going on? Why is she crying?" Her mother explained what had happened. Nina covered her mouth in shock, then pulled Anita into a hug. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Thank God nothing happened," she said, holding her tightly. Then she turned to Tony and walked closer. "Thank you for saving my sister," she said sincerely. She smiled, then asked, "Do you mind joining us for dinner? My mum just finished cooking a nice meal." Tony smiled faintly. "Thanks a lot, but I have to go now. I was actually heading somewhere before all this happened. My mum's probably waiting for me." Nina nodded. "It's all right." "Do you live in this neighborhood?" Rachel asked. Tony nodded. "Yes, Mom." "Oh, that's nice. You're welcome to stop by some other time and join us for a meal." "Sure," he replied politely. "And thank you again for saving my daughter," Rachel added. "I owe you." "It's nothing, Ma," he said with a warm smile. "Nina, please see him off," Rachel said. "There's no need," Tony said softly. "All right, if you say so." They waved as he left the house. Later that night, Anita rested her head gently on Nina's lap as they sat together on the couch. Nina stroked her sister's hair softly, her eyes filled with concern. "I still can't believe Jackson, my own friend, tried to take advantage of me, with his friend," Anita whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry he did that," Nina replied quietly. "But I promise you, he'll pay for what he did. You don't deserve this." Anita nodded slowly, tears slipping from the corners of her eyes. Nina held her a little tighter. The next day, as Nina walked home after shopping, carrying a small bag of groceries, she turned a corner and accidentally bumped into someone. "Oh, sorry," she said quickly, then smiled when she saw who it was. "Hey!" Tony stood in front of her, holding his bicycle. "Hey," he replied with a warm smile. "You didn't come around since that day," she said, raising an eyebrow playfully. "Yeah, I actually wanted to," Tony replied, scratching the back of his neck. "But I've had a lot on my plate lately, that's why." "I see," Nina said, smiling again. "Busy guy, huh?" "Pretty much," he said, chuckling lightly. "So, where are you off to?" "Nowhere, really," Tony replied. "Just decided to ride through the neighborhood for some fresh air." "Oh, I see," Nina replied, her voice light with amusement. "So basically you have nothing to do. That means you can follow me home. Anita would love to see you again." "Really?" Tony asked, surprised. "Yes," Nina nodded. "She's been talking about you since that day. You really made an impression." Tony gave a small smile and looked away for a second, then chuckled under his breath. He didn't say much, but he appreciated the thought. As they walked together, Tony rolled his bicycle slowly by his side. Every now and then, he glanced at Nina, her hair, her smile, the way she walked. Something about her felt calming. When they arrived at the house and stepped inside, Anita, who was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone, looked up and gasped. She jumped up with excitement and ran toward him. "You finally came," she squealed, wrapping her arms around him in a tight hug. Tony smiled and gently pulled her off. "I've just been really busy," he said. "Luckily, Nina bumped into me and insisted I come along." Anita turned to her sister with a grateful smile. "Thanks for convincing him to come." They all laughed lightly, and soon after, Mrs. Rachel walked into the living room. "Good evening," Tony greeted politely. "Good evening, Tony," she replied with a warm smile. "It's good to see you again." Nina and Anita set the table as they got ready for dinner. The smell of freshly made stew filled the room. As they all began to eat, Mrs. Rachel turned to Tony. "So, are you originally from around here?" she asked. Tony nodded. "Yes, Ma, born and raised." She smiled, then continued, "And what about your parents?" Tony calmly explained about his family background and who his father was. The moment he mentioned his father's name, Mrs. Rachel's eyes widened in surprise. "Wait a minute. Your dad is that Mr. Williams, the former governor of this state?" Tony nodded again, slightly shy about the attention. "Wow," Mrs. Rachel exclaimed. "Your family is rich, yet you're so calm and humble." Tony gave a modest smile. "My dad always taught me to stay grounded." She nodded approvingly. "That's beautiful. Do you know my husband was once a classmate of your dad? If he were here, he'd be thrilled to see you. When he returns from his trip, I'd love for you two to meet." "I'd really like that, Ma," Tony said sincerely. All through dinner, Anita barely took her eyes off Tony. She was smiling so hard her cheeks hurt. Tony noticed her gaze several times, but he said nothing. He just kept the conversation going with polite ease. When dinner ended, both girls walked Tony out to the gate. "It was nice having you around," Nina said as they stood outside. "Yeah," Anita chimed in quickly. "Please don't take long before visiting again." Tony smiled, stepping onto his bicycle. "I won't. Thanks for the meal and the company." "Any time," Nina replied, waving. As he rode away, Anita stood with her arms folded, grinning to herself, while Nina just watched quietly, her expression unreadable. Later that night, Nina sat on the edge of the bed scrolling through her phone, while Anita sat cross-legged on the bed, bubbling with excitement as she went on and on about Tony. "I just admire him so much," Anita said, her eyes sparkling. "He's so kind and handsome." Nina, still fixated on her screen, barely responded. Anita snapped, "Nina, are you even listening to me?" "Yeah, sure," Nina replied dryly, not looking up. "You were talking about Tony and how handsome he is." Anita folded her arms and continued, "He's the kind of guy I want. I wish I could have him." Nina scoffed and finally looked up. "Really? Anita, please. You have exams tomorrow. Go read your books." "Oh, please. You're so boring," Anita said, rolling her eyes. Weeks passed. Tony continued to visit from time to time, but every time he came over, he hoped to spend more time with Nina. Unfortunately, Anita never gave him the space. She was constantly around him, chatting, following him around, clinging to every word. It was starting to suffocate him, though he never said a word about it. One evening, there was another family dinner, and this time, Mr. James, Anita and Nina's father, was home from his trip. Over the meal, he shared stories about his school days with Tony's father. "Do you know your dad and I were very close in school?" Mr. James said, his eyes lighting up. "He was incredibly brilliant back then. We always competed for the top spot in class." Everyone laughed at the memory. Tony smiled as he listened, then shared some news of his own. "I'll be leaving for school soon." "That's great," Mr. James said. "Which university?" "Grove Hill." "Wow," Rachel said. "That's one of the biggest universities in the city." "Yes," Tony nodded. "It's actually been my dream university. I'm so glad I got admitted." "I wish one of my daughters would also get into that university," Rachel added thoughtfully. "I will, Mum," Anita said quickly, grinning. "Just watch me." Mr. James turned to Nina. "And you, Nina, any schools in mind?" "I'm planning to apply in 3 different universities," she replied calmly. "Grove is one of them." "I hope you get in," Tony said with a small smirk, making Nina smile slightly. Later that night, in their bedroom, Anita lay across the bed, her thoughts pouring out. "When I'm done with high school and get into Grove Hill," she said dreamily, "I'll date Tony. He'll be mine. By then, I'll be of age, and no one can stop me." Nina laughed. "You're really planning your future with him already?" "Why not?" Anita replied with confidence. "He's everything I want in a guy." Eventually, Tony's departure day came. Before leaving for university, he gave both Anita and Nina a gift. Anita received a lovely pair of slippers and was initially thrilled, until she saw what Nina got. Nina unwrapped her gift to find a stunning necklace with a delicate pendant. Anita's smile faltered. "Wow. He gave you this?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Yes," Nina replied, holding it up. "Isn't it beautiful?" "Sure it is," Anita said slowly. "But why would he get you a necklace and give me slippers?" Nina shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe it just came to his mind." Anita frowned slightly. "Right, if you say so." Nina raised an eyebrow. "Wait, don't tell me you're jealous," she teased. "Why would I be?" Anita replied with a forced smile. "At least he got me something nice too." But deep down, her heart twisted with envy. A few weeks later, Anita had become noticeably moody. She wasn't herself, quiet, withdrawn. The truth was, she missed Tony more than she expected. One afternoon, Anita returned from school and walked into the living room, only to hear her sister laughing on the phone. Nina was sitting comfortably, holding her phone to her ear and giggling softly. After a while, she ended the call. "Who were you talking to?" Anita asked curiously. "Tony," Nina replied casually. Anita blinked in surprise. "Wait, how did you get his number?" "He gave it to me before he left," Nina answered. Anita stared, her expression tightening. "Wow, so he gave you his number. and didn't even bother to exchange numbers with me. Is there something you're not telling me? Nina sighed, placing her phone aside. Oh, please, Anita, don't start. Maybe he didn't think it was appropriate. You're still underage. He's 21, and you just turned 16. That's a huge age difference. Stop with the underage stuff, Anita scoffed. I've exchanged numbers with guys who are 25 before. Nina looked genuinely stunned. What? Anita, why would you do that? That's insane. Maybe those guys don't have brains, she added seriously. Exchanging numbers with a 16-year-old is practically a crime. Or, did you lie about your age? Anita scoffed again, folded her arms without saying a word, then turned around and walked out of the living room, climbing the stairs without looking back. Nina sat in silence, watching her go, a mixture of concern and unease crossing her face. Later that night, Anita knocked gently on Nina's bedroom door. Inside, Nina was seated at her desk, focused on her laptop. Come in, she said, without looking up. Anita walked in slowly and sat down on the bed. What are you doing? She asked. Nina hesitated for a moment, then replied, I'm searching for universities to apply to. Oh, really? Lucky you, Anita said with a slight sigh. Nina turned to her. Why would you say that? Well, Anita shrugged, you can date openly. You're not underage like me. You can be with someone in their 20s without it being a problem, but I still have to wait 2 more years just to date someone over 18. It's not fair. Nina blinked, surprised. Wait, that's why you came in here? Seriously? Anita pouted slightly. I'm just saying. Come on, Anita, Nina said gently. Focus on school right now. You'll be writing your final exam soon. You'll turn 18 before you know it, and then you can do all the adult stuff. But for now, just study hard and pass with good grades. That way, you can get into any university you want. Especially Grove Hill, she added teasingly, since we both know you want to see Tony again. Anita chuckled and playfully nudged her. Stop it. You're already blushing, Nina teased with a laugh. Anita laughed, then got a little more serious. Actually, I came to ask for Tony's number. Nina paused. And why would I give it to you? Please, Nina. I just want to tell him something important, Anita pleaded. If he didn't feel comfortable giving you his number, why should I go behind him and do it? Nina asked. Please, Nina. Just this once. I promise I won't say anything stupid. Nina studied her sister's face for a moment, then sighed. All right. But please, don't embarrass me. I won't, Anita said, smiling. That same night, after getting Tony's number, Anita sent him a message. Hey, it's me, Anita. Nina gave me your number. How are you doing over there? I miss your face. Tony read the message and sighed quietly. He replied, I'm good. And you? Fine. Just miss you. They chatted for a little while, but Tony soon ended the conversation, saying he needed to get some sleep and prepare for the next day's lecture. He also advised Anita to rest early and focus on her studies too. The next day, in the evening, Tony texted Nina. Hey, why did you give Anita my number? Nina replied honestly. She begged me, said she wanted to tell you something important. I made her promise not to say anything weird. Tony didn't say much after that, but he appreciated her honesty. A few months later, Nina wrote her entrance exams and applied to 3 different universities. When the results came out, she was thrilled to receive admission and a scholarship into Grove Hill, the same university Tony was attending. She couldn't contain her excitement. Her mother helped her pack her things in preparation for the move. By the time Nina began her first year, Tony was already in his second year. Despite being on the same campus, Nina and Tony didn't see each other in person for the first 3 months. They spoke occasionally over the phone, but nothing more. One sunny afternoon, Tony spotted someone sitting alone in the school garden. As he got closer, he immediately recognized her. It was Nina, seated quietly and reading a book. Smiling, he walked up to her. "Hey Nina, do you mind if I sit?" She looked up, slightly surprised to see him. "Oh, it's you. Forgive my manners, of course, you can sit." "Thanks," he said as he settled beside her. "Have you been hiding from me?" Nina chuckled. "No, I'm not. Actually, I just wanted to settle in first. It's my first semester and I don't want any distractions." Tony raised a brow, smirking slightly. "Are you trying to say I'm a distraction?" "No, definitely not," she stuttered. "That's not what I meant at all." He smiled. "Relax, I'm just teasing. So, are you enjoying your stay here?" "Not too much, but I'm blending in pretty well," she replied, closing her book. "You look like the quiet and shy type," he said with a grin. "You're right. I barely know how to start conversations with people." "I noticed," he said playfully. They continued talking for a while, then got up and took a slow walk along the campus walkway. Tony followed her back to her dorm before leaving. A few weeks passed. Tony began visiting Nina more often. The two of them grew closer, creating a gentle and supportive bond. Tony helped her settle into university life and made her days more interesting. Still, he never expressed his deeper feelings. He kept things friendly. Nina, on the other hand, didn't push for anything more. She saw Tony as a kind friend, almost like a big brother, and treated him as such. 2 years later, Nina returned home during the holidays for Anita's 18th birthday. The house was decorated with balloons and lights, filled with friends and family. Music played in the background, and laughter echoed through the rooms. When Anita blew out her birthday candles, she closed her eyes and made a wish. "I wish to be in a relationship with Tony," she whispered silently to herself, smiling. A few weeks later, she applied to Grove Hill University, the same school Tony and Nina attended, and to her joy, she was admitted. She was over the moon with excitement. "Finally," she thought, "I'll get to see Tony again, and this time, I'll confess my feelings." Nina had already mentioned that Tony was still single. That only fueled Anita's hopes. At that time, Tony was in his final year, and Nina was in her third. Anita arrived at Grove Hill brimming with enthusiasm. She shared a dorm room with her sister and couldn't stop talking about Tony. That night, she lay in bed, tossing and turning. "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see Tony," she said, grinning. "He's the reason I'm here." Nina looked up from her textbook with a confused expression. "Wait, so you're not here to study? You came for Tony?" Anita rolled over dramatically. "Of course I'll study, but you know what I mean." "Let me remind you," Nina said seriously. "This is your first year. You have to focus. If you don't put in the work, you'll be kicked out before you even settle in." "Ugh, don't start," Anita groaned. "You always try to ruin things whenever I talk about Tony. Just let me enjoy my thoughts. I'll just lay here and dwell on everything that could happen between us." Nina shook her head and went back to reading. The next day, Anita finally saw Tony. Her heart raced. Without hesitation, she ran toward him and hugged him tightly. "I can't believe I'll be spending my first year here seeing you all the time," she said excitedly. "I'm so happy." Tony chuckled lightly, a bit unsure how to respond. "That's great. You know what, Tony?" she added. "You've got a friend now who'll keep you company every single day." Tony nodded slowly. "Just remember this is your first year. You have to focus, or you might fall behind." "I know," she said, waving her hand dismissively, "but I can do both, focus and have fun." "If you say so," he replied with a polite smile. Then he glanced around. "By the way, have you seen Nina?" Anita's expression shifted. I think she's in the library," she said casually. "Okay, I'll go look for her," Tony said, already walking away. Really? Anita asked, sounding disappointed, but he waved her off as he walked away. Weeks passed. Anita made sure to see Tony every single day. She brought him food, snacks, and gifts, even when he didn't ask for anything. She clung to every moment they shared. Tony, on the other hand, began to feel suffocated. He appreciated her kindness, but her constant presence became overwhelming. Some days, he just wanted to hide until he graduated. One evening, he spoke to Nina about it. "She's everywhere," Tony said, frustrated. "It's like I can't breathe." Nina laughed. "Well, you brought this on yourself. You're the prince in her fairy tale." Tony groaned. "This isn't funny, Nina." Anita, though, wasn't blind. She began to notice the distance Tony was putting between them. His conversations with her were getting shorter. He avoided spending time alone with her, and deep inside, she knew something wasn't right. One night, Anita lay awake in bed, quietly crying. Her soft sobs echoed through the room, eventually waking Nina from her sleep. Rubbing her eyes, Nina sat up and turned toward her sister. "Anita?" she whispered. "Why are you crying?" Anita wiped her tears but couldn't hold back the pain in her voice. "Tony doesn't like talking to me anymore. And I always see him with other girls. So many of them. Laughing. Smiling. Like I don't exist." Nina sighed and moved closer, sitting beside her on the bed. She gently put an arm around her. "Maybe he just needs some space," she said, trying to lighten the mood. "You know Tony. He's always friendly. Maybe you're overthinking it." But Anita didn't respond. She just buried her face into her pillow and cried quietly. After completing her first semester, Anita made a decision. She was going to confess her feelings to Tony. She knew he'd be graduating soon, and she didn't want to miss the chance. They met at a quiet spot on campus, near a bench shaded by tall trees. "Hi, Tony," Anita greeted nervously. "Hey, Anita," he replied, sitting beside her. She took a deep breath. "There's something I've been wanting to say. I think you already know." Tony turned to her with a calm expression. "Tony," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I have feelings for you. Everything I've done, all the gifts, the time, I did it because I love you. I really love you, and I can't bear the thought of seeing you with someone else." She paused, searching his face. "I hope you feel the same way." Tony let out a quiet sigh. "I'm sorry, Anita, but I don't feel the same. I like you, but only as a friend. Honestly, I see you like a little sister." Anita reached for his hand gently. "Tony, please, don't say that. I'm not your sister. I love you. Can't you create even a little space for me in your heart?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "Since the day you rescued me from those boys, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I only kept my feelings hidden because I was still underage. But I'm not anymore. We can be together now." Tony's expression turned serious. His voice was calm but firm. "Anita, my heart belongs to someone else. I don't have space for anyone else." Her face fell. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Why would you do this to me, Tony? You knew how I felt. Why can't you love me back?" Tony stood slowly. "I'm sorry, Anita, but I just can't be with you." And without another word, he turned and walked away. Anita sat there, frozen in place. The pain washed over her like a storm. Her chest ached with shame and heartbreak as she sobbed alone on the bench. Back in the dorm room, Anita couldn't stop crying. Her eyes were red, her voice hoarse. "I can't believe he's in love with someone else," she cried out. "This is insane. I thought you told me he didn't have anyone in his life." Nina looked at her carefully. I haven't seen him with any girl, at least, not in any romantic way. And he told me he was single. He never mentioned being in love with anyone. Anita's voice turned bitter. Then who is that bitch trying to take Tony away from me? I won't let this happen. I must win him over. He's mine. She collapsed onto her pillow, still sobbing. Nina sat quietly, a little concerned. She stared at the wall, thinking deeply. Who could the girl be, she wondered. Who is Tony in love with? A few days passed. Anita became a shell of herself. She couldn't concentrate on her studies. Her mind drifted constantly to Tony. Her mood was dull, like someone newly heartbroken for the first time. Nina tried everything to get her back on track. She scolded her, encouraged her, even yelled at her, begging her to focus and move on. But Anita wouldn't listen. I can't let go, she insisted. I must be with him, no matter what. Meanwhile, Tony sat in his room, deep in thought. He had tried to stay quiet for so long, but now he knew it was time. It's time I confess my feelings to Nina. One evening, Tony invited Nina to a quiet dinner at a small cafe on campus. The lights were soft, the air calm, and the atmosphere intimate. As they sat across from each other at the candlelit table, Nina felt a bit uneasy. Something about the setup made her heart race. Something told her this wasn't just a friendly dinner. Tony reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. Nina, he began softly, his voice low and sincere. There's something I've been wanting to tell you for a long time, but I didn't know how to say it. He paused, then looked into her eyes. I love you. Nina froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Though part of her had always suspected it, hearing it out loud stunned her. A part of her wanted to smile, but another part felt overwhelmed by guilt. Tony, please, she said gently, pulling her hand away. I can't do this. Why? He asked, his expression falling. My sister loves you, she said, barely able to meet his eyes. But I don't love her, Tony said firmly. I love you. I just want to know if you feel the same way. From the moment I saw you, Nina, I fell in love. I couldn't take my eyes off you. He leaned forward, his voice deepening. At first, I thought it was just attraction. But it wasn't. All these years, I haven't been able to feel anything for anyone else. Because of you. Please. I know you feel something too. Don't let your sister come between us. Nina looked away, her heart pounding. You don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. Anita has always loved you. She talks about you constantly. She even worked hard just to get into this university. Because of you. Her whole dream was built around being close to you. I can't just betray her like that. Tony's expression tightened. I'm not asking about Anita. I'm asking you. Do you love me or not? This isn't about your sister anymore. It's about us. Nina stood up abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. I can't do this, she said, her voice strained. Then she turned and walked out. Nina, wait! Tony called after her. But she didn't stop. That night, back in their dorm room, Nina sat quietly on her bed, staring up at the ceiling. Her heart was heavy with guilt. Her thoughts wouldn't stop spinning. She glanced over at Anita, who was sleeping peacefully in the bed beside her, unaware of what had happened. Nina felt a knot twist in her chest. She didn't know what to say, or what to do. She couldn't deny the truth anymore. She was in love with Tony, but how could she act on it? How could she hurt her own sister? A silent tear rolled down her cheek. She curled up on her bed, hugging her pillow, trying to silence the storm in her mind. But sleep never came. In the days that followed, Nina did everything she could to avoid Tony. She skipped common areas, ignored his calls, and stayed buried in her studies. But the tension weighed on her heavily. One evening, Tony made up his mind. He was going to see her. When he arrived at her apartment, Anita wasn't home. He knocked on the door. To his relief, Nina answered. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw him standing there. She began to turn away, but he gently stopped her. "Nina, please," he said quietly. "Just let me in. I know Anita's not home." She hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside and let him in. They stood there in silence for a few seconds. "I know you've been avoiding me," Tony said, his voice calm but firm. "Ever since I confessed how I feel about you." Nina looked away, her arms folded tightly. "But Nina, you can't keep punishing yourself just because your sister loves me. I never led her on, and I've never loved her. She's known that." He stepped closer, his voice growing more intense. "It's always been you. Just because I saved her life doesn't mean I owe her love." He gently reached out and held her face, lifting her gaze to meet his. "Look at me, Nina. I see it. The tension in your eyes, the love you're trying to hide. Why are you hurting us like this just to protect your sister? She's young. She'll heal. But this, what we have, it's real." Tears filled Nina's eyes. "Please, Tony. I know Anita. She always fights for what she wants, no matter what. She's not going to just walk away from this." Tony sighed deeply. "Really? I'm a grown man, Nina. Do you honestly think your sister can have me just because she wants me? That's not how love works." He softened his voice. "All right. I understand you don't want to hurt her. Then we'll keep this between us. Just for now. Until she moves on." He reached up and gently wiped away her tears. Then slowly, he leaned in and kissed her. Nina hesitated. Her hands pressed against his chest in resistance, but she couldn't push him away. Not anymore. Her arms slipped around his neck, and she kissed him back, melting into the moment she had tried to deny for so long. Suddenly, "What the hell is this?" They froze. Anita stood in the doorway, her eyes wide in disbelief. "Nina, you and Tony?" she said, her voice breaking into a bitter laugh. "Of course. Why didn't I think of this before? I should have known. It was you all along, turning Tony's heart away from me." Her voice turned cold and sharp. "You wicked lying bitch!" she screamed. "Anita, please, I can explain." Nina tried to speak. "Not another word from you," Anita snapped. "I hate you. You're wicked." Tears welled in her eyes as she stormed out of the apartment. "Oh my God," Nina whispered, covering her face with her hands. "What have we done?" She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Tony knelt beside her, trying to calm her. "It's okay. It'll be fine." "No," she cried, standing up suddenly. "I need to go after her." Without waiting, she ran out the door. Tony stood there alone, running a hand through his hair, his mind spinning. Outside, Nina caught up with Anita, who was sitting on a bench nearby, crying into her hands. "Anita," Nina said, breathless. "Please, just listen." But Anita wouldn't even look at her. Nina sat down beside her, tears in her own eyes, begging, hoping for a word, a response, anything. But all she heard was silence and sobbing. A few days passed, and Anita still refused to speak to Nina. Every morning she would leave the dorm for her lectures without saying a single word. No greetings, no eye contact, nothing. It broke Nina's heart. Watching her younger sister treat her like a stranger felt like punishment she couldn't escape. Tony called one evening to check in. "How's Anita?" he asked. "She hasn't said a word to me since that night," Nina replied quietly. "I can talk to her if you want," Tony offered, but Nina shook her head, even though he couldn't see her. "No, it'll only make things worse," she whispered. That night, Anita was sitting on her bed, scrolling through her phone with a blank expression. Nina stood silently in the corner for a moment, then walked over and knelt beside her. Anita, she said gently. Anita didn't look at her. She turned her face to the other side. Please, Nina whispered. At least hear me out. There's nothing to say, Anita replied coldly. Don't you get it? I don't want to talk to you. Her voice was sharp. Besides, you have Tony now. Go talk to him. Anita, please don't say that. You're my sister, my little sister. I love you more than anything. I would never intentionally hurt you. But you did, Anita snapped, finally turning to face her, eyes blazing with pain. You acted like you had no feelings for him. You always told me I was too young, always lecturing me about how I couldn't be with him. Meanwhile, you were secretly in love with him all along. That's not true, Nina said, her voice trembling. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Tony never told me he liked me. Not until after you confessed your feelings. I swear I rejected him when he first came to me. Anita let out a bitter laugh. Really? So I'm supposed to believe that? After seeing you both kissing like you've been together for years? And here I was, thinking I was the only one obsessed. But it was you all along. Her voice cracked. You're a liar, Nina. A fake. A witch in disguise. Anita, please. You're hurting me, Nina sobbed. We can't throw away our bond, our years of sisterhood, just because of a man. Please, tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it. But don't shut me out like this. It's killing me. Anita stood up slowly, wiping a tear from her cheek. All right, she said calmly. If you want me to forgive you, if you want things to go back to normal, promise me you'll stay away from Tony. Don't go near him. Don't talk to him. Nothing. What? Nina's eyes widened. That's insane. I can't possibly do that. Then we stay like this, Anita said coldly, walking out of the room. Nina sat on the floor, broken and confused, unsure of what to do. The next morning, just as Anita was about to leave for class, Nina stood in the doorway. Anita, please, she said. Anita looked at her with indifference. What now? You know what I mean. Are you really planning to stop talking to me forever? Just because of Tony? Anita scoffed. Seriously? If you don't have anything useful to say, move. I'm already late for class. Nina swallowed hard. Her voice was low. All right, if that's what it takes. I'll stop talking to Tony. Anita froze and turned around slowly. Are you for real? Yes, Nina said with a forced smile. If that's what will make you happy, I'll do it. A smile crept onto Anita's face. That's more like it. She leaned in and gave Nina a quick hug, then a peck on the cheek. Then she left. But as the door closed, Nina stood there frozen. She wasn't happy about her decision, not even close. And deep down, she knew she had just given up something her heart truly wanted. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and stay tuned for the next part.